what a shock that Amazon is the bad guy. And we'll get into all that in a minute, but it's pretty awesome when you see people fight back against completely unnecessary surveillance. And what I'm talking about is Amazon essentially canceled this big deal that they had that would have turned every single Ring doorbell in America into a node in a nationwide police surveillance network. And really the only reason that they canceled it is because people, when they heard about it, absolutely lost their minds. It was after the Super Bowl, so I'm kind of lagging behind here. I had a lot of stuff going on. I'm doing a massive series right now on all the ID verification stuff. It's going to be nuts. I'm going through a terabyte of data right now, so I'm like back and forth. But I really wanted to make this because it's important to talk about the wins when we have them. The Amazon showed everyone kind of what Ring was becoming, and I just kind of wanted to discuss that and talk about what happened because it's a big deal that they ended up killing this entire deal that they had. But it's also important to note that it's kind of like the least troubling thing that they actually have going on vis-a-vis infrastructure, because they build stuff that's far worse than this. So if we transport back into October of last year, Ring cut a deal with a company called Flock. They're a surveillance company that's valued at like $7.5 billion or $8 billion, probably more by the time this actually comes out. But they run like 100,000 automated license plate reader cameras across 49 states. Those numbers are constantly expanding. So again, those numbers are probably wrong too. These are like conservative numbers. Look at it like that. But those cameras can scan more than 20 billion license plates every single month. And they do. And they save a lot more than just license plates. People like to call them license plate readers. They're really not. They're full-on AI cameras that record all kinds of details, from dents in your car to if they can see you driving, all kinds of stuff. I actually have a friend right now who's fighting a murder case, and this is one of the things that they cited. They cited the use of Flock cameras. So this is something they absolutely use in prosecutions, by the way. Now, one thing to keep in mind is all of this data feeds into one kind of massive network that has something like 5,000 law enforcement agencies that can search it with no warrant required. And that's who Amazon decided to try to team up with. The deal was supposed to work kind of like this. When cops are investigating a case, they could use Flock's platform to post a request in Ring's Neighbors app. And they make it sound so nice, totally Orwellian. Like, the state's like, will you snitch on the people that use it? Yes, I would like to. But ask people to voluntarily share their doorbell footage. And that kind of sounds reasonable, right, on the surface. Local police, active investigations, kind of specific cases, and voluntary participation, the latter of which I'm not opposed to at all. I'm an agorist and believe heavily in counter economics, so voluntary participation is kind of the keystone of all that, right? The problem with voluntary participation in something like a surveillance network is that once the infrastructure actually exists, the definition of like voluntary starts to shift and become fluid according to the people who want the information. And we all know exactly how fast it actually shifts because Flock's already shown us that in multiple cases. Like in May of last year, when 404 Media caught Flock building a product called Nova. It was like this so-called public safety data program that mixes license plate data with stuff from data breaches, public records, and data that you can just buy, essentially. Like, you could buy it. I could buy it. Anyone with money could buy it. Like, there was no need for anything like a court order, right? Which historically has been required for other people's data. But anyways, side issue. Internal Flock employees were actually mortified about this. One of them wrote on Slack, and I'm quoting, I'm pretty horrified to hear we use stolen data in our systems. And Flock eventually said that they wouldn't use dark web data in Nova after the story went public. But the fact that they were building it at all kind of tells you where this company's head was at. It's also interesting to me from the standpoint of, like, if I get stolen data, according to DOJ memorandums, I can't use that to make money, right? So I can't get information from a data breach and then sell that information. That's illegal because it was obtained illegally. It's like if I steal your bicycle and then sell it to your neighbor, that's illegal. It's first off, it's theft, but let's say I don't steal it. If I just sell the property, it's still sale of stolen property, right? So that's kind of what this is. And the fact that they were going to obtain that and then they were going to use it to make money. And they're just like, yeah, who cares? We have lawyers. Let them handle that. We'll make money in the meantime. Because just like with the people who sold Oxycontin or anyone else, you could make $12 billion and then pay the $6 billion fine. And who really cares at that point? So that's what it is. Meanwhile, the guy who gets caught with a couple pills, he gets a couple years in prison. But anyways, side issue. Flock's CEO, who's a guy named Langley, actually admitted that they run limited pilots with federal agencies. And even though they didn't actually come out and say that they have like some formal contract with ICE, local police departments around the country have absolutely been running searches on things like the Flock network on behalf of federal agencies. And whether or not you agree with ICE or not is really kind of irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that you have this private company feeding intelligence and data to the federal government when they're only supposed to be able to access certain types of data when they have a warrant. And the feds have run more than 4,000 lookups, which gives them a side door access, essentially, to this surveillance network that exists. They don't technically have a contract with Flock, right? And Senator Wyden actually looked into it and confirmed that it was happening. I'm not an advocate for politicians. I think they're all corrupt, by and large. I think they're all traitors. But that's a whole nother thing. But at the end of the day, we're all going to be surveilled with these systems. That's my issue. It's like the town has a bunch of potholes. They don't fix the potholes. The potholes get really bad. Then they fix the potholes. And they've been getting paid to maintain the roads the whole time. They just chose not to. And then all of a sudden you'll see people like, oh, it's so great they fixed the potholes. And people like put prayer hand emojis on Facebook. And it's just absolutely pathetic. At the end of the day, like, that's your job. That's that they should be doing. That's where supposedly your tax money goes and does this. So one interesting story was a sheriff named Adam King who actually got arrested by his own deputies and hit with a felony charge for sexually harassing female employees. So he's a creep and a pervert. It wasn't bad enough that you're just one of them. For retaliating against the witness who actually reported it. This is half of the issue. Like, these things will be weaponized in ways that we don't even see because the use cases, in some cases, may be really niche, whereas in other cases, they might not be. But stuff like this keeps happening. Just last week in Milwaukee, in fact, a cop got charged with attempted misconduct in a public office for using Flock cameras to stalk his partner and their ex over 170 times in 2 months. Days later in San Francisco, an officer got flagged by an internal affairs office for running Flock searches on his wife's stolen car and posting the actual surveillance images on Instagram as if it was some kind of flex. So you have all this misconduct, essentially, that's taking place with these cameras already. It really hasn't even been normalized yet. But this is the kind of access model that they have, and it's working as designed, really. That's who Amazon, again, decided to get in bed with and have a partnership with. And again, we're only like one layer into what Ring has actually been building. So the Super Bowl ad that was moronic at best, was basically this feature that they were showcasing called Search Party. And the ad showed a family puppy going missing, which is something everyone can sympathize. Who's like, oh, I don't care. That puppy deserves to get lost. No one says that. So, they picked this thing that no one could have an issue with, and they use that, or they try to use that, to sell this kind of stuff. In the video, it's people look, the dog gets lost, and AI finds the dog, and everyone's, happy, and Amazon essentially had already committed $1 million to equip animal shelters with stuff like Ring cameras. And it's all really kind of heartwarming, feel-good stuff that you don't really think too hard about unless you have that instinctual reaction that some people. And they had it, and viewers kind of immediately recognized what they were actually looking at. It was Ring cameras coordinating across an entire neighborhood to hunt for this specific target. Whether it was a puppy or whatever it was AI hunting a thing, right, in real time across the neighborhood. And I think people see the microcosm of that, of it hunting in the suburbs, but this is something that could be absolutely applied, and they fully had an intent to apply it nationally. So you had a senator named Ed Markey who came out and called it creepy and basically fired off a letter to the Amazon CEO, who's Andrew Jassy, and he pointed out that the Ring doorbells now include a feature called Familiar Faces that collects stuff like biometric data on anyone walking past the camera. And, of course, there's no disclosure with this. No one actually knows that it's happening. And Ring came out and said essentially that its Search Party only works on dogs. It's not capable of processing human biometrics. Right. Okay. It can only spy on Lassie. It's you can't make this up. I dare you to try, right? Now, they're also the company that has a total separate facial recognition feature running on the exact same hardware. So you can tell why people aren't really reassured. It's nonsense. And the backlash was really, really brutal. Really brutal. Physical violence level brutal. TikTok videos basically popped up and went viral, urging Ring camera owners to smash their cameras. Keep in mind, these are people with contracts that maybe paid for this a year in advance. It's no joke. So you had one person who ended up telling his 3 or 3.5 million followers or whatever to destroy their Ring doorbells. And good for him. That's awesome. People, it's not like they were just mad or upset, right? They were furious. They were actually throwing their cameras in the trash that they paid for and they had subscriptions for. So within days, Amazon ended up canceling the Flock partnership. Amazon's line was that the planned Flock safety integration would require significantly more time and resources than anticipated. Basically a non-statement. That means absolutely nothing. There's no substance in it whatsoever. It's like you had a politician. It's complete corporate speak that just says, the PR damage really isn't worth it. We didn't realize we couldn't get away with this. We'll let you all shut up and calm down and we'll try it again later. They said the integration essentially was never actually live and that no Ring customers' footage was ever sent to Flock. But it doesn't matter because we haven't even discussed what's actually running. Ring still has an active partnership with a company called Axon, which is another police surveillance company that does the exact same thing. It's so the pipeline from your doorbell to law enforcement is still massive and wide, and it's still open. It's just running through this different company that they didn't mention. Remember how they said, oh, it only works on animals? Yeah, that was nonsense. So the whole Familiar Faces facial recognition feature is still live and already violating biometric laws in places like Illinois and Texas. Ring already paid $5.8 million to the FTC way back in 2023 for stuff like privacy violations. And Senator Markley's investigation found it only protects the privacy of the device owners, not anyone else who walks past the actual camera. Now, Search Party is still active, and it's enabled by default, meaning that you've actually got to go opt out of it yourself. So the EFF pointed out the truth about it, which is it takes zero imagination to see Ring combining face recognition and neighborhood-wide searches into something much worse that nobody actually opted into. And Ring's own legal guidelines let the company hand your footage over to anyone, police, whatever, with no court order, if Amazon decides the situation qualifies as a quote-unquote emergency. Which, by the way, they admitted to doing at least 11 times in 2022 alone with zero judicial review. And that's just us. That's a total trust me, bro thing. There's nothing they actually released to back that up. It's just that's what they said. And if you completely zoom past Ring and we look at the Flock network, it is grinding along regardless of what Amazon does. So cops have been using Flock to track people at places like protests, and the EFF got their hands on data that actually showed more than 12 million searches logged by 3,900 agencies over just 10-month period. So over 100 school districts have also installed Flock cameras, and audit logs from Texas school districts show the data essentially getting folded into the same national database that cops query without warrants. We're going to have all these laws and all these sellout senators and congressmen that are talking about how, oh, it's for the kids, it's for the kids, and none of that. It's all nonsense. It's all lies. It's all betrayal. That's what it is. Flock essentially couldn't keep their own cameras secure. Back in January, an amazing security researcher named Ben Jordan found Flock's Condor cameras streaming live to the world on the wide open internet with no password protection, what he called a Netflix for stalkers, because anyone essentially could watch these feeds and pull up a month of archive footage or just delete everything if they wanted to. Now, again, if this was for your safety, that would be it's something that would be controlled. It would be locked down. It's not for your safety, though. It has nothing to do with safety of anyone. It has to do with setting up a security grid, a control grid. So shift away from that. Separately, stolen cop logins for stuff like Flock systems are also turning up on sale on places like Russian cybercrime forum. And you got senators like Senator Wyden and a few others who actually went to the FTC demanding an investigation because something like 3% of Flock police customers still haven't turned on MFA or multi-factor authentication. So this company scanning 20 billion plates a month, and they still can't be bothered to enforce something like MFA or even just a basic thing like password protection. That's too difficult, right? What we're seeing is the courts are kind of split on whether any of this is legal. A Washington court ended up ruling that Flock's camera data counts as public records, while at the same time, a Virginia Circuit Court ruled that collecting this data violates the Fourth Amendment, but the Virginia Court of Appeals reversed that back in October, saying that cops don't need permission because license plates are essentially visible in public. And just last month, a federal judge ruled that a Norfolk's 176 Flock cameras are basically perfectly constitutional, even after two plaintiffs proved that their cars had been photographed 475 times and 325 times in 4.5 months. Even when someone proves that the surveillance is constant and pervasive, you still have the courts, saying whatever, who cares? It's all good. So the good news is, though, that cities are figuring this out, and pulling the plug in a big way. So, for example, Mountain View, California, shut down their entire flock program after an audit caught something moronic. The ATF, the Air Force offices in Virginia and Ohio, and the GSA Inspector General had been running constant searches on their camera data using the nationwide search setting that Flock had turned on by default without actually telling the city. Then in Cambridge, Massachusetts, they canceled their whole Flock deal after Flock installed cameras without even notifying anyone. So Bend, Oregon ripped cameras out as well. Olympia killed 15 camera pilots, and more than 30 localities nationwide have voted to disable and terminate Flock since January of last year, with Ithaca, New York, pulling the plug just yesterday. In the meantime, we see like Los Angeles is actually expanding their Flock contracts because apparently the LAPD looked at everything that I just told you and said, yeah, like that sounds good. Give us some more. You have the EFF and the ACLU at the same time suing San Jose over like 4 million warrantless ALPR searches in a single year. And cities across Silicon Valley, from Santa Cruz to Alameda County, are walking away completely from their contracts. If you have Ring cameras, go into your settings right now and disable search party, because Amazon turned it on for you and didn't tell you. After that, do stuff like enable end-to-end encryption, which is a great way to try to keep your system more secure. But honestly, really the best move is to get off cloud-based cameras entirely. Like Frigate NVR is open source. It runs locally on your own hardware. It does stuff like object detection and person detection using AI, and none of that footage actually touches any corporate server or even leaves your own network for that matter. Things like Home Assistant can manage your cameras locally with no cloud dependencies. So essentially you get all the same functionality, alerts, motion detection, clip reviews, remote access, but Amazon and Flock and every cop with a login can't touch any of it. They can't falsely accuse you of something. And if you want to know whether Flock cameras are watching your neighborhood, you can go check haveibeenflocked.com, because essentially police departments accidentally exposed 2.3 million license plates and tens of millions of search records because they're dumb and they botched their redactions on public records requests. And that data is now searchable, so you can see if your plate's been actually queried. And you should, because when you look things up like that and you personalize invasions of privacy, they become personal. And when they become personal, it's a great motive for you to fight them because it's an encroachment on your right to privacy. So they also have like deflock.me, which is a crowdsourced mapping project that documents 76,000 license plate readers across the country, so you can see exactly where they're actually positioned. Now, Amazon canceled this partnership, going back to that, because the backlash essentially went viral and people started throwing their cameras in the garbage. And that kind of PR damage really made it stop being worth it. But like I said before, the Axon partnership is completely untouched. And that's a facial recognition op that's running. And Flock's 100,000 cameras are still scanning those 20 billion plates a month across the entire country. And that train doesn't seem to be slowing down, even with the opposition. You have people who bought a doorbell camera just to see who's at their front door. And it became this node in that national surveillance network that traces cars, scans faces, and then feeds that data to all these different federal agencies. It allows people to abuse those systems of control. And the company that sold it to you essentially ran this stupid Super Bowl ad pretending the whole system existed as a fix for lost puppies because it thinks you're a complete moron. If you're still using Ring cameras or cloud-connected security systems, I'd genuinely like to hear in the comments what you think about this, whether you've actually weighed the trade-offs and whether any of this actually change how you feel about what's mounted to your front door. And I will tell you, like, at the end of the day, I have security cameras, but none of them go anywhere. I can access them from outside my house, because I have tail scale set up, but none of them are going anywhere. The footage is uploaded off-site to a server that I control. And none of this is extremely difficult to set up. At some point, I really have to make a video about this. If I remember, I'll leave the cameras that I use linked in the description. They're not affiliate links or anything like that. I don't make any money from that. Let me know what you guys think about all this craziness. Stay safe. Stay aware. There are adversaries out there. Thanks for watching to the end, and I'll see you in the next video.